Welcome to the Sidebar with a CFP. Pierce the veil on BigLaw Life, career, and money. Hosted by Matt Smith, the tour manager for BigLaw attorneys. You bill in 6-minute increments. Let's get you some of that time back. In each episode, we will have candid conversations about life inside Big Law, the real stuff they don't teach in law school or show in recruiter brochures. This show pulls back the curtain on what it actually feels like to climb the ranks, navigate transitions, and make big decisions in a high-stakes career. You'll hear from partners, associates, and experts across law and finance, each sharing stories, surprises, and strategies for building a life and career that works for you. This isn't a money podcast. It's a Life in Big Law podcast with a CFP in the host chair. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and on our website, concertplanning.com. Now here's the host of Sidebar with a CFP, Pierce the Veil on Big Law Life, Career, and Money podcast, Matt Smith.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for being here with the Sidebar with the CFP podcast, where we pierce the veil on life in big law. We talk about life events, money, career, all of that sort of stuff. And today I'm really excited to have a guest who is not only a colleague of mine in the financial world, but he's also a good friend of mine. And I really trust him. I trust his consult when I need to ask for advice for things, and he and I definitely bounce ideas off each other. LJ Jones is a fellow Texas Longhorn alum. He is the founder of Developing Financial, which is a fee-only registered investment advisor in California. LJ and I met at least 2 or 3 years ago when we discovered that we had the same client niche, which is young people in the field of law. And we decided to join forces and set up a weekly meeting and start building out what was going to be an educational course on financial strategies and financial education for the legal world and people in the legal world. That's been put on pause since the advent of AI, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I want to welcome LJ. And LJ, thank you for sitting through that painful introduction. I'll have to get with my compliance attorney and figure out if we can maybe minimize some of the compliance intro at the beginning.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I thought you were billing me as a lawyer, trying to get in your full 6 minutes there. You get your
Yeah.
0.1 credit.
You got to do what you got to do. So yeah, thank you for being here. I'm glad that you're here. I think we're going to have a lot of really interesting, good things to talk about. And I know you can share some perspectives that's going to be helpful to the community listening to this. I think one of the first things I wanted to talk about, I alluded to a little bit in the introduction. You and I had started building out a course that was called 4L Financial Academy, and it was going to be an introductory educational course for people in the field of law to learn about basic financial planning concepts, maybe for those that weren't really ready to hire a financial advisor just yet. And we've really put that on hold just based on the advent of AI and how usable that is and things we're doing in our own respective firms. Do you want to talk a little bit just about how you see artificial intelligence impacting us in the world of financial services for attorneys?
Yeah, it's certainly here to stay, and it's going to change a lot. In my experience from my clients and things, what I'm starting to notice is ChatGPT, Grok, whichever one people use, that's kind of their go-to before they even come to me with questions. And so they're already getting an additional perspective on their questions and then coming to me and trying to get my idea on it. I think right now it has a really good ability to teach people things. If you have no idea what your options are for repaying your student loans, or if you have no idea what, personal liability coverage is on your renter's insurance, it can be really helpful of explaining that. And I think that takes out a lot of what the course would have explained. Our kind of the way we had set it up was like for the DIY customer who wants to, that they like learning about their finances. They want to do it themselves. They just don't know all the information that's out there. It's just much easier to ask ChatGPT that. Now, when we do have a question there, it is one of those things where it will give you general advice and general context, but it does not know everything about you. It doesn't know if you have credit card debt or not. It doesn't know if you have student loans. It doesn't know what your employer benefits are. It doesn't know your account balances. And so where I think things have kind of transitioned is I think at some point AI is going to be able to know all of that, but it hasn't gotten there yet. So I think like a financial planner with AI is far more powerful because now they can basically ask it questions at a much higher level, as well as understand your context and understand their approach and come out with much better opportunities. But for something like a DIY investor who's just like, I just need to know like what is a large cap investment fund, like
Right.
it can answer that for you. And that I felt like that was kind of what our course was doing, was just the instructiveness of it, explaining things in detail, not getting too much into the details, not giving exact advice because everyone has this unique thing. But yeah, I kind of was disheartened when AI came out in terms of our course, because I felt like it just would be the first stop for people rather than our course.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No,
we have pivoted since then.
I totally agree. Yeah. I think it was a smart thing to pivot from that. But I would say, I've seen, so I use AI extensively in my own firm, and I know you do too. And I've seen it prove to be extremely helpful with operational and administrative kind of tasks. What I've also seen is that if you don't know the right questions to ask, then you may get accurate responses to the things you do ask, but you may not have provided the correct context for it to really hit the nail on the head in terms of your particular situation. Another thing that really struck me the other day is I had my 1-year-old daughter at the pediatrician's office, and they had actually posted a sign in the lobby of the office that said, pursuant to some new statute here in Texas, that they wanted to notify us that they were going to use AI as part of the delivery of care and services. And I just thought, wow, talk about a high trust industry. I know financial services is a high trust industry, but um, pediatric medical care is extremely high trust. And it appears that it took a law being passed in Texas for some of the offices and franchises and things to come out and say, "Hey, we are using these tools." Now, they're not going to be the ones to diagnose your child, and they're not the ones to deliver the care, but yes, of course, these are helpful tools that we're all going to use. Hopefully, it'll make the export experts more efficient, and just like you and I hope, I do think it'll make DIY investors and even non-DIY investors, people that want to delegate their financial planning help, it'll still make you a smarter and more resourced person. And I think that's good for everybody in the equation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think back to, I had a friend send me a question where they were like, should I pay off my car loan or should I keep this lump sum of money in like a high yield savings account? And they asked me this question, and I told them kind of my thoughts based on everything I knew for them. And they were like, well, ChatGPT told me something differently. And I was like, well, if you want to send it to me, I can kind of figure out what it was. And as I was kind of going through it, it actually was correct in answering the question that my friend had given it. Unfortunately, my friend had given them a question that wasn't worded correctly. And so it actually wasn't answering what they really wanted the answer to, which me
Right.
as a financial professional would have known exactly what they were referring to. But ChatGPT just kind of took their literal prompt in there, and it really was no fault of ChatGPT either. It was just the person entering the information didn't have the understanding or context to put in the right question. And so that led to some immediate flags for me. It's like, okay, this is for DIY people, extremely powerful, extremely helpful, but sometimes people don't even know which questions to ask the
Yeah.
model to get the response. And so there are certainly pitfalls out there still until these models get better.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's on its way to being there to be able to do a considerable amount of the lift and the help. But I think people's lives, humans, if this business has taught me anything, serving these households around the country, is that everyone's lives are different and they evolve in different ways. And even what we may think initially is the most simple situation often turns complex, just given the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of life. And and life planning. So along that line, with your friend with the car loan, what are some big mistakes that you've seen people make, that you've either been able to catch and fix, or maybe some that they've made the mistake and it's too late, but things that really stick out to you, just kind of these horror stories that you could relay that might get the attention of some of the listeners for things they can think about in their lives.
Yeah, I like to think that for lawyers, the only times they reach out to financial planners are in two situations. The first one is they want to be proactive. Maybe they have family who has a financial planner, or they have no interest in financial planning, but they know they need to figure it out. And so they'll reach out there just understanding they don't know and they don't care to know. The other time people reach out to you is when they have a financial issue that they have come to you. They tried to do it themselves for a while. Now they're in a hole and now they're coming to you for answers.
Right.
Most commonly, the issue that I see is just too much debt for people to handle.
Hmm.
It's not uncommon to see someone who, maybe they were able to buy a house. Maybe they were able to get into a good spot with their student loans, but, you know, at some point, maybe they have student loans, they have a mortgage loan, maybe they took out a home equity line of credit to make some improvements to their house. Maybe they have credit card debt now, and they come with a bunch of debt, and maybe they're just getting by. They're feeling like I'm making my payments, but they kind of start to get this sense of like, uh, I don't want to be in this position anymore. And two, I think it's a very restrictive feeling, and especially in the legal industry, talking about the golden handcuffs. A lot of the time, the golden handcuffs comes because of too much debt. That is the number one like lock-in effect for people is they get way too much debt way too quickly, and it's totally fine. They can afford it as long as they continue in the private law route or they continue to progress at their firm. But if they want to change careers, if they, had a kid recently and they want to go part-time or anything, they start to run up to this debt that requires a certain amount of income to hit. And then it's not an
Yeah.
easy scale to unscale it. And so that's probably the most common situation I see is just kind of adding on all these debts that make sense in the moment, but remove that flexibility in the future. And then when people want to pivot, they kind of come up against the stark reality of making sure the debt is accounted for with their
Hmm.
pivot, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, when you take these things, it's just like the AI deal. When you think about some of these things in a silo, a mortgage lender may tell you, "Well, sure, you can afford this mortgage. We've run the math over here. We know you can." Or, federal student aid, you can just get it. And it's like, well, okay, in silos, all of these things are doable and they make sense.
Mhm.
But when you take a step back and look at the collective picture, it can be a real headache. You headaches and debts. That takes us right to student loans. There has been just the most ridiculous series of events to go down in the student loan world over the last few years. And I know, LJ, you are a certified student loan professional, one of your designations that you have. And I know that you have a pretty good focus on student loan planning and help for your clients. What have you seen over the last few years? What do you think about it? What are some what's coming out of all of the upheaval that we've seen in the last few years?
Yeah. So one update, I am no longer a certified student loan professional. I let the certification lapse. And really, I felt
Okay.
like they just weren't giving me the educational resources that I felt like I needed to kind of stay on top of this.
What
Through my own curiosity, I felt like I was actually able to kind of supplement all of that there. So,
Yeah,
um,
listeners, let me butt in here and tell you something that LJ will not tell you himself. I myself have dropped 2 designations, not just, 1, and it's because a lot of these designations, they give you a great education and they get you up to speed on a certain topic area, and after a few years, they kind of really lose their value, but they still wanna charge you every year to maintain your designation and all that. So, we're gonna get into a story here in a minute where I think LJ will, demonstrate his very strong awareness of the student loan universe.
yeah.
Anyway,
And
sorry,
my
interrupted.
name's already starting with initials, so people don't need even more initials beyond that.
Yeah, good
Um,
call.
But yeah, with student loans, I mean, especially in the last couple of years, it has been an ever-changing landscape from the newly created repayment assistance plan that was just created in this one big beautiful bill act, from getting rid of the save plan, getting rid of the pay plan, um, all those restrictions in terms of income-driven repayment plans. There are lots of updates as well in terms of, how borrowers can get into these plans and things like that. And also with interest rates coming up, that has affected a lot of people who, kind of conventional wisdom up until 2019, 2020 was you graduate law school, you have student loan debt with 6%, 7, 8%, immediately refinance. Privately refinancing loans are really low. And so you can just immediately get a lower rate. You'll pay less in interest. You'll pay off your loans in a quicker amount of time. It's kind of simple for the big law attorney, but that has started to change. I think right now, interest rates still are compelling, but the gap between what you pay at the federal level and what you get for private refinancing is not as big as it once was.
Mhm.
And as we were kind of talking about with debt earlier, when you privately refinance, it's a one-way street. You can't go back to the federal loans. And the federal loan system has a number of ways that borrowers can add flexibility to their life. There are income-driven repayment plans where if you switch jobs, maybe you decide you want to go to nonprofit work or public work or something like that, your income's going to drop significantly. And so they have plans that can basically determine your payment off of your income rather than what it takes to pay down your loan, like a car loan or a mortgage. Once you get out of the federal loan system by refinancing, you're stuck with that payment. And so if you have a $3,000 a month payment, which isn't uncommon for lawyers, especially if they also have graduate and undergraduate debt from before that as well, you're stuck with that, even if your new job is only pays you, $90,000 a year or something like that. And
Yep.
so there are a lot of considerations when it comes to student loans beyond just how do we pay the least amount of money? It's how do we pay the least amount of money while also giving you the flexibility in case your life changes? And so, especially with private refinancing rates being a little bit lower, it certainly adds another dimension that I think you and I, as financial planners, are looking at.
Yeah, I think I recall you and I talking about a case you had where someone had been told to refinance and it was just not the right thing for them to do upon reflection once you were able to take a look at it with expert eyes.
Yeah, it was. I mean, somebody in that situation was told, like, hey, if you refinance, you're going to have a $300 less payment and you'll pay less for interest overall. They did that. And then they were like, well, I've always wanted to, work for the local government or something like that. And it was kind of like, well, you certainly can, but now 30% of your income is going to the student loan. And there's nothing you can do at this point. You can't refinance again because interest rates are higher and
Hmm.
you're kind of stuck in this loan. And the private lenders just are not as forgiving. So you can't, pay smaller amounts or anything. You do need to make those payments on time and in full. So it was an unfortunate situation where it's like if that person had the full context of what you wanted from a career standpoint, maybe the advice would have been different. But you know, I can't fault the client. Again, it kind of goes back to that AI thing. They just didn't know the questions to ask. They just heard, "I'll save
Right.
money by doing this. I want to do that." And I think
Yeah.
that's ultimately where someone like you and I, who have seen, many clients doing this and everything, we just have a much better perspective of what questions need to be asked and what it is that really makes the most sense, considering all the factors that touch someone's life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, flipping, from maybe the less happy stories, I know you also had a case where you were able to be among the first to take advantage of what I refer to loosely as a Kaiser carve out as it relates to public service loan forgiveness. I know there is a more technical term for that. Do you want to expand on that and talk about what you found in the new regulation and how you were able to help somebody save tremendous amounts of money with their student loans?
Yeah, this was a really exciting opportunity. So there was a contracted employee carve out there where essentially what they did was they had this situation that occurred in mostly the legal industry or medical industry, but also the legal industry, where there were people who would work for a eligible employer. So they would work for somebody like a county legal office or something, but they did it through a program, and the client that this worked in was in New York, and it was kind of like an assigned counsel program. So essentially, like there would be situations where a county or city would have court cases, and first person you'd give it to is probably like their lawyers or the Department of Justice or something. But then what would happen is if they couldn't take it or something like that, then they'd give it to a local agency that could come in and do it. So you could think like Legal Aid Society or something. Maybe they would take on the case, but maybe they didn't have the capacity or they had a conflict of interest, and so they couldn't enter into it. And so the third level of kind of counsel that could be assigned is what's called these assigned counsel programs. And so essentially what it is it's private lawyers who work for the state, basically to take on those cases that for some reason the normal kind of order of operations can't be met. And so what ended up happening there was it was an opportunity for us to apply under this contracted employee designation. Now, if you look on the student aid website, they kind of reference this medical designation where there are hospitals in California and Texas where they can't employ the doctors. And so because of that, this was kind of carved out for them. But
Mhm.
when you actually dug into the law itself, it actually said that as long as state law says that you can't take that on, or for some reason, state law says that you can't be employed by an eligible entity, you can apply for this. And so what we did was we basically worked with this client to determine how we could basically find law that created this program. And so basically explained to the Department of Education that, hey, there is state law here that says that they can't be employed because of these conflicts of interest and things like that. And so after doing that, what we were able to do is basically submit a letter to them, explain how we did it, to the point where the Department of Education accepted it and were able to forgive this lawyer's loans, which before this exemption, they had no chance of getting public service loan forgiveness. There was no
Sure.
exemption at
Yeah.
all to get them in there. And so this gave them an opportunity to finally get their loans forgiven. And I think it is something that's still valid. I do believe in this current administration that they are more rigid in how they are assessing these things. But I do think that there is an opportunity for people to apply under this exemption and still get credit. And I am working with some clients to get that under this new administration.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's I don't think you said it, but as I recall, the relief that that particular client experienced was on the order of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of student loan dollars that were forgiven. So here in my world of concert financial planning, I can assign people the title of rock star, and you're definitely a rock star in the student loan planning field. So congratulations to you and to that client. What are some other great outcomes that you think about when you think about working with young legal professionals?
Yeah. So working with young legal professionals, I think one of the big things that I always see with people coming out of law school is for many of them, they are years behind their peers from undergraduate school. They choose to go to law school. That's 3 years that they're kind of in this law school phase where other people are out there working jobs, putting money to retirement accounts, saving up for a down payment, buying their first kind of adult car, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
And when people leave law school, they kind of want to catch up to their peers, and they have the income to do it. But it does require time, and usually they graduate with student loans, so they have that as well. And so there is kind of this desire to meet their peers and kind of hopefully surpass them very quickly. And so one of the like biggest goals for especially young people is buying a home. That's kind of the American
Yeah,
dream, and people are
right.
so excited to get there. And so I have had it where a few clients we've worked together for a couple of years. We've set up a good savings plan. We've gotten an emergency fund. We've gotten their credit to a good spot. We've gotten their debt managed. We've done all the right things to where it was finally a conversation of go out there and start to buy your home.
Yeah.
Start using Zillow and start setting the filters for what we felt like was a reasonable price, but not with the intent of just kind of like spending a Saturday night, just kind of dreaming about what could be, but actually with the intent of buying a house there. And those first few clients that finally are like, "Hey, I bought a house. Like, thank you so much for it." We have meetings where they are on their camera in their new house and we can talk about it.
Yeah.
I even have clients at this point who are starting to ask me like, "Hey, can we use some of our savings to make renovations to the house?" It's so exciting to have those conversations because you can see the goals being achieved and continue to kind of work on throughout that point. And it's just kind of like it validates the work that we do, where it's like, I was
Yeah.
able, you had this as a goal. And because we set up a plan, because we followed it, we were able to get you in the house that you wanted and that you're really happy with. And I think that is certainly one of the main wins in the field that we're in.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I think you and I, if I recall correctly, I think we started our firms roughly similar time frame. So we've been around 5, 6 years, something like that. And I found myself sending an email to clients last week just saying one of the topics that I talked about was that clients are winning. And that was the best way I could explain how I've seen some people that I've worked with for years now really elevate in their career, yes, but also elevate in their life, whether it's been getting married, getting engaged, starting a family, buying a house, getting their emergency fund set up, getting past the super lame but necessary parts of financial planning, like getting the correct insurances in place or getting estate planning documents in place if they've had kids or something like that, or paying off the student loans. It's a huge one that I've seen a lot of people do since we've been working together, and I y I could not have predicted how rewarding that is to be alongside people when they go through those different processes and achieve those milestones. It's really, really awesome, and you see, people growing, as a family, growing in their career, and, becoming just more secure and confident in their lives. It's really cool.
Yeah, I had one client who told me she was like, "Yeah, I was talking to some of my coworkers about buying a house, and she's the spouse of a client who works in law, so her career isn't as high earning." And her coworker was like, "Wait, you have enough money for a down payment?" She was like, "I didn't even know people could do that these days." I live
Yeah,
out in California, so the down payments usually need to be a little bit bigger. And she was
right.
like, "Yeah, I've been working with this financial planner to help me, help us save up for it." And her coworkers were just amazed that somebody could get to a point where they had enough, before the age of 30 to have enough for a down payment just based on their own savings approach to it. So that was a really validating piece of it or words from the client.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of times when people are getting started, it's impossible to see over the hill and the light at the end of the tunnel, and then all of a sudden you find yourself there, and you can't believe it. Well, like taking it back to the beginning, as we started these firms and worked with clients for 5 plus years now at this point, how did you get into the field in the first place and find this niche that we both work in?
Yeah, so like you, I'm not a lawyer, but my wife is, the smarter of the two of us. And
Yeah, right.
as she was going to law school was actually a time where I was wanting to open up my own firm. And in our industry, similar to the legal industry, like you want to have a niche, you want to have a specific expertise or a specific client that you serve, and it allows you to just have a much deeper level of understanding and a much more efficient process of kind of handling clients' questions when they come to you. And so I was trying to find what my niche could be and how I can serve a specific audience really well. And at about that time, my wife was in her third year of law school, and her friends came to me and they were like, "Hey, LJ, we know you kind of do this finance. We know you're a CPA. Can you like have us over one night and just kind of explain some of these things?" So like, we don't really know what a 401k is. We don't know how to pay back our student debt. And it became very obvious at that point that, law school teaches you to be a really great lawyer, but it doesn't teach
Mhm.
you how to handle the financial rewards of this career. And so
Exactly.
by doing that, I was like, wow, there is a huge need here to help people with this. And, these are very smart people, and I know for sure when they start working in Big Law, they're not going to have time to spend their Saturday looking up, their employer benefits brochure and trying to figure out what the
Yeah.
best course of action is.
No
And so
time,
that
no
was just like,
interest.
okay, if I can basically create a process to help these people, that's a really great alignment there where I can help them. They succeed in their career, and I'm assisting them along the way with their personal side of finances and doing that. And so that was kind of the aha moment. And then it was kind of an iterative process of just building that process and kind of starting to work through all the different areas, whether it's tax planning, insurance planning, budgeting, investments, employer benefits analysis, all of those things on an ongoing basis, just kind of iterating and creating a process. And at this point, I feel like I have a really good process from taking a client from wherever they are to kind of where I want them to be. And then on an
Mhm.
ongoing basis, continuing to build on that. So they're in the best place that they can be going forward.
Yeah. Well, and so wrapping that up, I mean, what does your practice look like now? Where can people find you? Should they find you? Do you have a wait list? How should people interact with you going forward?
Yeah, so I did close off my firm. I love working with clients. I love having my hands on their files, their plan itself. Like, I want it to be just a solo firm for me and my clients, so I can serve them fully. I'm not outsourcing it to other people, and so I actually, earlier this year, I hit kind of my max capacity for clients. So I do have a wait list that clients can have. I also have a 30-minute kind of intro call. And originally, this was how people would start to work with me. Now I still kind of leave it on my website just in case anyone
Mhm.
has questions. I started my business to help people. I never want to turn people down or not even answer their questions if they have any. So if anyone out there has any questions, they can certainly go to my website, schedule a call. It will say on there, like, I'm not taking new clients. Still feel free to sign up if you want to have a question with me. And I'm happy to kind of answer any questions that people have. I also have a few tools. I know you and I have created tools and things like that, but I have, especially for some things like a billable hours tracker that is really helpful just for clients
Yeah,
to kind of keep track of their hours as they approach goals so they can understand if it's reasonable to keep trying to go for those bonuses, especially with layers of bonuses depending on their hours. That's a really helpful thing. And I also, while I'm closed off to like ongoing clients, I still do have a student loan repayment plan that I can still help people with. So whether it is through that contracted employee exemption, or it is just I want to pay back my student loans, but I want to, have the flexibility or understand if privately refinancing makes sense for me. That's what that service is for. That's still available to anyone who's interested on that, and always happy
nice.
to help any way I can.
That's cool. All right. I didn't realize that about the student loan service still being open. So that's great. That's a great resource. And yeah, like you said, we've created some tools together, and I know you have a lot of really helpful things for people. So I'm glad that you're still willing to chat and give some people maybe a little bit more informal guidance in certain areas. So LJ, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll have you back in the near future to get further updates on what's going on.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on.
Great.
You've been tuning into Sidebar with a CFP. Pierce the Veil on Big Law Life, Career, and Money with Matt Smith. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and on our website, concertplanning.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. The contents of this podcast are purely intended to be general and educational in nature and should not be construed as specifically tailored investment, financial planning, tax, legal, or other professional advice. Any investment performance referenced is purely past performance, which is no guarantee of any future performance. Nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as an offer to sell, a solicitation of an offer to buy, or a recommendation of any security or other financial product or investment strategy. All investment, tax, and financial planning strategies involve risk that you should be prepared to bear. You are highly encouraged to consult with professionals of your choosing before taking any action based on the contents of this podcast. To the extent the guest on this podcast was a client of Concert Financial Planning as of the date of the recording, the guest was not compensated for their time. Nothing conveyed by the guest should be construed as a testimonial or endorsement of Concert Financial Planning, and their experience as an investor or a client may not be representative of all investors or clients.